A couple of days ago, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Jeremy Hunt, announced the autumn budget, which basically explains how the UK is going to attempt to strengthen the UK economy. In this video, I'm going to give you a brief overview of what was covered, as well as what this could mean for you as an individual or investor. So, first things first, one of the things that was discussed in the autumn budget was income tax. Now, this is something that we're all going to feel the most. One interesting thing to point is that the changes had nothing to do with the difference in tax rates, but had everything to do with how much taxable income would fall into different tax brackets. So, prior to the budget, the current tax system was that there was a personal allowance first from £0 to £12,570, meaning that if you had some taxable income within this range, then you would pay zero rate tax, so you wouldn't have to pay any tax whatsoever. The second tax bracket was the basic rate tax band, which stemmed from £12,571 to £50,270. Now, if you had taxable income in this tax bracket, then you would be subject to an income tax rate of 20%. The next tax bracket up, which was the higher rate tax bracket, this stemmed from £50,271 all the way up into £150,000. So if you had taxable income in this tax bracket, so from those two values, then you will be subject to an income tax rate of 40%. Next, the last tax bracket was the additional rate tax band. So for this, if you had taxable income that was over £150,000, then you would be subject to an income tax rate of 45%. So that was the current tax bands prior to the budget. So one of the main things that the autumn budget changed was how much would be subject to 45% tax. In other words, how much income that is taxable would fall into that additional rate tax band. So what the autumn budget stated was that instead of the additional rate tax band starting at £150,000, it's now going to be decreased to £125,140. So this change alone has resulted in an additional 250,000 people being subject to additional rates of tax. So to put this into more layman terms, if you currently earn £150,000, when it comes to April, you will have to pay an additional £1,200 of tax. This is because more money would be subject to a 45% tax rate due to the fact that the value by which the additional rate tax starts at has decreased. So for some, this may not seem too bad, but an important thing to note is that they have frozen these values up until 2028. Now this is an interesting thing purely because it's good for the fact that there's going to be some consistency with the tax values, but on the flip side, as people's salaries will increase with age and experience, it won't necessarily feel like they're making more money. This is because as they do get those increases in salaries, they are going to be subject to more tax. So it's going to kind of level out. So moving on to how the autumn budget can impact you as an investor, one of the dramatic changes and more aggressive changes that they've made is to the capital gains tax. Now, capital gains tax is the tax levied on any profits made from investments or assets, etc. So as it stands, the current capital gains tax allowance is £12,300, meaning that if you have investment profits up to this amount, you will pay 0% rates on tax, so you won't have to pay any tax whatsoever. Next year, the capital gains tax allowance will be reducing to £6,000, and the year commencing 2024, the capital gains tax allowance will be reducing further to £3,000. Now this at the moment is the only thing that is changing for capital gains tax. The rates are remaining the same, which are 10% if you fall within the basic rate income tax band, so as I said, 12,571 to 50,270, and 20% capital gains tax paid for investors that fall within the higher/additional rate tax band, so anywhere from £50,271 upwards. So it's safe to say that investors with assets outside of tax-free arrangements will not be happy about this, purely because there will be more profit/income subject to the capital gains tax because less of the money will fall within the tax-free allowance. Another thing that will impact investors as a result of this autumn budget is the change to the dividend allowance. Currently, as it stands, the dividend allowance offers tax-free dividends up to £2,000. However, next year that will be decreasing to £1,000, and the year following that, so in 2024, that dividend allowance will be decreasing to £500. This will mainly affect company directors who tend to pay themselves as dividends rather than in the salary form. So moving on to pensions, there is actually some good news in relation to this, and this came at a really good time because it has recently been estimated that just over 2 million pensioners are currently living in poverty. But like I said, there is some good news for the pensioners, purely because in the autumn budget they did confirm that they will uphold the triple lock. So the triple lock refers to the action of increasing the state pension by one of these three amounts. So one of them is the rate of inflation, second is 2.5%, and third is the average earnings. So due to this adherence to uphold the triple lock, the autumn statement did state that they will be increasing the pensions by £870 for this year. So as you guys know, inflation is at ridiculous levels at the moment, which is making it difficult not only for pensioners but other people in general to survive and feel comfortable. So what essentially this triple lock does is it makes sure that the state pensions for the pensioners increase at an adequate rate of growth, essentially meaning that this will prevent the pensioners from slipping further down that poverty line, which is good news. So hopefully we can see that figure of just over 2 million pensioners living in poverty slightly decrease. So moving on, I'm just going to touch on how the autumn budget has impacted the energy bills costs, as well as the provision put in place to support people to make these energy bill payments, because as you know, they are pretty high. So at the moment, the current energy price cap is set at £2,500. But what the autumn budget stated is that this energy price cap is going to increase to £3,000 in April. But the good news is that this is going to remain at this rate for the next 12 months. Additionally, what the statement stated was that there's going to be an additional £500 to all UK households to support them to pay these energy bills. Furthermore, there's going to be a means tested benefit, which essentially means that there will be additional levels of support for low earners, individuals that are pensioners, as well as those that have disabilities. On top of this, there's going to be an increase in the national living wage by 9.7%. Now, this is going to result in an additional 2 million people receiving a pay rise. All in all, I do think the autumn budget did make some really good points. I don't think investors will be too happy with the fact that the dividend allowance will be decreasing, as well as the capital gains tax allowance. But I'm a firm believer in it needs to get worse before it can become better, especially when it comes to the economy. So that's it for today, guys. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Take care now.